Walker Teele, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. How the heck are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here. Nice to meet you guys.
Thanks for having us. This has been great. We've been recording a lot, getting a lot of great content. Really, we're trying to understand what it's like to work at Martin, the people, the story, the culture here. We're uncovering it all with our agency Break-In, and we've been doing just that. So would love to get your take, learn more about you, your role, and your views of Martin today, because we know agencies shift every once in a while. So that's my agenda.
Yeah.
Are you cool with that?
I love it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. We should start with who you are, Walker Teele. You're the executive partner, is this correct? And head of account leadership?
Yeah. So Martin's unique, a little bit unique in that, we really do try to run the company with an executive committee. So all the executive committee members are partners.
Nice.
And I also lead our account management practice, which also includes project management. So that's, a good chunk of the agency. And for sure, it's been interesting to kind of go from a role of being like a senior client facing person who's dealing with CMOs, and that's my only job, to doing that in part, but spending a lot of time thinking about the care and feeding of others and helping people develop. So it's been cool.
Gotcha. So can we talk about some of the clients that you maybe worked on historically at the Martin agency?
Yeah. So at Martin, I joined almost 10 years ago, which is gone by in a blink.
In agency years, you multiply that by 7?
Easily, right? And that's the longest I've worked anywhere. I joined to run Walmart, which was our biggest client at the time, and did that for about a year and a half. We lost that business to Publicis, I think. It seems like an eon ago. And then since then, I've worked on a bunch of clients. I've worked on Land O'Lakes. I've worked on, let's see, we've done Papa John's at the moment I'm involved in. Almost too many to think of it over 10 years, but it's been great.
Gotcha. So run me through how this executive leadership team works. You're on it, it seems like. How do you guys interact? Who's on this team? Can you give me the rundown of the top level here?
Yeah. So, obviously, Danny Robinson's our CEO. He's on it. Janet White is the CFO. Jerry, I probably should have put Jerry second. Jerry Hoke is Chief Creative Officer. Our 2 ECDs. Okay. You've got Ashley and Jordy. You've got myself leading account management, Michael Chapman, our Chief Client Officer, and Elizabeth Paul, who's Chief Brand Officer.
Gotcha. Chief Brand Officer. I like that role. That sounds like a fun one. What's the difference between what you do and what Michael does?
We get that question a lot. Michael's an interesting guy. Used to be Chief Strategy Officer.
Okay.
Went to be a CMO and came back. And, our previous CEO, I think, had a more expansive view of titles can be a little more amorphous and, you can have a big skill set. So Chief Client Officer, I think, gave Michael a way to kind of go wherever he's needed in new business and play either a strategy role or a client role. But probably the big distinction is Michael isn't looking after a department. Michael's kind of floating and helping lead businesses wherever needed. Whereas, I've got to look after the 80 or so people in account leadership in addition to some other things.
Got it. I want to get into the account leadership portion so badly. So I just want to go right into it because I know a lot of people want to get into account management when they're breaking in. I guess, what are some of those key attributes, qualities that make up a good account person?
Oh, that's such an interesting question, because I think the role has changed massively in the last 10 years even. But certainly when I started in the late 90s, it was the role of strategy was not as big. Project management wasn't a thing. But I think when I think about qualities that you have been true the whole time, the cliche is that you've got to be super organized and detail oriented. And I don't think that has changed.
Right.
But you've got to be someone who can deeply understand clients' businesses. You've got to be someone who can build trust and be good at building relationships pretty quickly. And I think those are sort of the core skills. And then over time, what's kind of layered on top of that is you've You've got to be able to understand new channels, new technology and mediums, and like what's going to work in those channels. You got to be a great partner to your creatives. I don't think most creatives want the account people necessarily being the first voice in the room about work. But if you don't demonstrate a love of creativity and a passion for ideas and an ability to defend them, you're not going to do very well. Certainly not at Martin or any of the agencies we see as peers.
Yeah, like how do you know when to like push on the client to sell like a strong creative idea? Because it's a fine balance because you want to understand the marketing objective, but then you also have to understand that you're a creative agency and your creatives, we want to respect them and the ideas and what Martin stands for. How do you balance the two?
Yeah, I mean, to me, like when you just go right at trying to sell a client that has objections, that's really misguided. I think what we can do as account people, different than strategists and creatives, is help them connect the dots between their business objectives and how, even though if they don't see it immediately, the creative idea is actually going to meet their business objectives and lead to the outcomes they want to see. And I think when you can just demonstrate that you deeply understand how their business works, what their consumer journey is, the friction points that they have, and then bring that around to the work, then you've already sort of halfway solved the problem.
Gotcha. Can you run me through a time where you had to do that in your career, whether it was at Martin or work with the client, and then you successfully sold something that was creative and bold?
Yeah, I mean, there's one time that springs to mind is we had a client, Land O'Lakes, the big dairy company, and they were interested in trying to get people there, the broader world to see, because they're a co-op. They wanted people to understand that they were a co-op and how different that was from most business structures, and get people to think, okay, I feel better about buying butter from Land O'Lakes because this is a cooperative of farmers.
Yeah.
So we tried to sell them, we did successfully sell them on the idea of doing a music video with an up and coming artist that was essentially a song celebrating farmers.
Nice.
So this was a branded entertainment play. This was 7 or 8 years ago before this was a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And the CMO, while a champion of creativity, didn't see it at first. And we were able to kind of keep bringing him around to how, if the business outcome is to get people to want to buy their products more often because they feel great about a cooperative, that this was the type of thing that could really do it. Whereas just a traditional ad talking about the fact that they're farmers,
right?
As we say at Martin, bright can be ignored. And that's just going to be wallpaper that no one's going to pay attention to. But a music video with a cool artist is something that is going to get noticed.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I like how we're talking now, getting back to Martin. You've said you've been here for around 10 years.
Yeah.
Got it. Can you paint the picture of the culture of when you first started here, when you walked in the doors 10 years ago? What was it like when you walked in?
Well, so Martin is as an agency that's been around quite a while, has gone through a whole number of chapters. And so when I arrived, we were at the tail end of what I would say were some of the greats. John Adams was CEO, but he was nearing the end of his tenure. He had been CEO, I think, for 20 or 30 years. Mike Hughes was his partner, and Mike Hughes is really the guy that I think the DNA of creative that runs through this place was really established by him.
It's so cool to have like this history and the lineage of this one location. Yeah.
I mean, I feel honored to be a part of it. Yeah. But they were kind of nearing the end of their tenure, and they were about to pass over to a new generation. And so it felt like the love of the work and the passion for place and the values were great, but you could tell that we were at a point where we needed reinvention to stay relevant in an industry that is just changing faster and faster.
And that can scare a lot of people. That can deter people from wanting to work somewhere when there's leadership change. People tend to leave. And what was going on in your brain? Did you see this as an opportunity point?
I did. I mean, I knew that Martin has always been blessed with kind of being stacked with talent.
Yeah.
So there's always a bench below the leadership that's ready to step up. So I was new, but I felt confident that Matt Williams and some other people had the capabilities to step in and run the company well. But little did I know that there would then be a whole nother chapter where that generation of leadership was about to turn over again and bring in the Kristen Cavallo era, which I'm a absolute huge fan and mentee of Kristen's leadership.
Got it.
And
Got it.
that, I think, has then kind of set the stage for what Danny's doing and really take Martin from being kind of seen as a really amazing but sort of regional TV shop known for Geico to a shop that I think really is one of the top agencies in the country, and not just known for Geico anymore, known for constantly kind of pushing the boundary on all sorts of clients, and not being a TV shop first and foremost at all anymore. So that journey has been something really cool to be a small part of.
Yeah, and I think I think people would be very upset if I didn't ask about Kristen. You
Yeah.
know, understand she's not currently working here anymore.
Yeah.
But what was it like with her leadership here? What did you learn from her? Well, you know, obviously from the outside, we all heard how special she was, and
Yeah.
I'm fairly new to the industry. So if you can paint that picture, what it was like working with her.
She had been here before in her career, gone to Mullen Lowe and been super successful. And so we knew of her, but I didn't know her. And I just remember how fearless she was from day one, and stepping in and setting an agenda, um, and just the authenticity she had with every single person when you would meet her. And she just knew right away what she wanted to do. And for her, the mission from day one was about fighting invisibility. That's her idea.
Right.
And she made it clear that she felt that the vast majority of advertising is ignored and that our mission is to do work that can't be ignored. That means being part of culture. And then the second part of what she did that was so cool is she said, if you're going to fight invisibility, you can't possibly do that if you don't look like the culture around you and you don't reflect that culture. And, you know, as a white dude with a slightly Southern accent, I can say it was very obvious that we weren't diverse enough to reflect culture. And so she led that charge in a way that is still very much alive and well. And, you know, it was magnetic. I just think it took a matter of not even 6 weeks before you could feel the energy change and the momentum start. So,
Wow.
you know, there's so many other Kristen stories, but that's kind of the heart of how I
Right. Setting up, like, what would you call the fight invisibility? We fight invisibility, the brand platform, your motto, your slogan, your reason to live. How do you package that
I mean, it's the agency's mission,
mission?
but it's a like a mantra that runs through everything we've done. I mean, I think there are now other agencies that have versions of that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's as distinct as it was when she first came up with it, but I don't think that takes anything away from the power of it.
Sure.
It's
And
being emulated.
I like the two-pronged approach here, like the external, making
Yeah.
better ads that get noticed, and then also then internally, how you hire and how you think about creativity within the walls. And it seems like, and that was established how many years ago, you say?
Well, so
Give or
Kristen,
take?
this would have been like 2019, I think. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if I have that right. 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right
And
before the pandemic hit,
sure.
which was crazy.
Well, it's good to have that North Star during that time,
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think that's a good point. I mean, the pandemic seems like both yesterday and a decade ago, probably to all of us.
Yeah.
But that helped. That was glue at a really difficult time, you know, that we all felt like we could go back to that and have that as an anchor point.
Gotcha. And then now talk about the ethos today. Is that still the mission? Is it still alive and well here at the Martin Agency?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's proved to be really enduring. I mean, Danny, I think, is working to put his own spin on that, and Jerry too, creatively. But I don't think we feel like the idea of fighting invisibility, the idea that a lot of time clients feel like if they just say the things that are true of their company and true of their product, that people will just come to them. We believe that right can and will be ignored. And so you've got to do things that stand out in culture. And that doesn't mean that traditional paid advertising doesn't work, because it does. But audiences are so hard to reach with the, you know, death of linear TV and the fragmentation of media. You've got to hit subcultures, and you've got to show that you understand those subcultures to fight invisibility. And so we're just constantly evolving and trying to find new ways to do that. Like our social practices, when I joined, you know, there was hardly any social practice at all. And now one of our biggest organic growth areas is seeing, you know, different forms of organic social. And that's been super cool to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of growth in new areas and innovation over the past 10 years. Were there any kind of fun initiatives that you're looking back in the past 10 years that really stick out, fun items that you guys have done here?
Oh man. You talking about like work?
Yeah, we can take that in like the work approach. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, you kind of have to talk about the Snoop thing. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, let's do it.
that was so interesting because that came to us in a way that was not really a traditional client or new business process. It was kind of a partnership that grew out of some stuff we were doing together. And then, I think the Snoop idea, I didn't work on it directly, but supported the team. But, it was almost like an idea we took and we were sort of like, this, you're never really going to be able to find the money to do this or have the bravery to do this. And they did. And then Snoop was up for it. And so I just think when you talk about not being invisible and you talk about being part of culture and then seeing the way that caught fire, that's certainly a moment where you feel like, okay, this works.
Yes.
The playbook is effective.
And how do you describe that playbook so I can learn it?
Well, I'm not sure it's just one playbook, but I think the idea that any sort of paid media content you create ought to be inherently designed to create earned around it.
Yes.
And that, if it doesn't have earned potential, then you're leaving money on the table.
Yes, totally. It's nice if the client buys into it, right? And because, a lot of the creatives I talk to, I've seen a lot of agencies, like they have these big buzzy ideas and then it gets stuck in the approval process. Sometimes internally at the agency, and then a lot of times with the client.
It's true. And I mean, it's tough to be a CMO. I mean,
totally.
Those guys, what's the average tenure? Probably 2 years,
yeah,
2.5. And then, they often have a board that just wants to talk about ROAS and ROI. And that's important.
Yeah.
But a lot of times the measurement frameworks are not set up for the CMO to even succeed and prove that what they're doing is working.
Right. So how do you navigate that? And that tenure seems to be getting shorter. Not quoting, I don't know for a fact, but
yeah,
I don't know if it's growing.
It can't be.
So how do you help them out on your side?
Well, I mean, some of it is trying to make sure we're really astute at working with partners and working with their internal team to tell the story of the data that is there.
Right.
And this is an area that we're also looking to grow is our data science practice because, the more that you can prove both in terms of buzz and earned and say, okay, this is the value of that, but also prove how that's worked all the way through the funnel.
Right.
That's great. But sometimes it's hard and you have to look to things like brand health and brand equity and see movement there as well. But I think we need to get better at it because I know the value is there. And I think the most forward thinking CMOs see it. But I'm not sure CFOs in corporate America
the board
see it at the same level.
Yeah. So that data science telling that story of how a campaign was truly successful in the language that they want to see. Totally. That's really important. So unlocking that can be super helpful too. And I'm sure it's also when you're talking with potential clients, they probably know that you guys are a shop that creates buzzy work, really culture breaking work. So they should have that preconceived notion that they're going to get some bold creative advertising. Is that fair?
That's totally fair. And it's kind of interesting. I think, I feel like more and more we are seeing, clients who come to us because they know that's what we do.
It's a great spot to be in.
And I don't think, if you look at the really big agencies, and there are some that are part of Interpublic, so I don't want to, say that's bad, but trying to be all things to all people is, I don't think, working. I think people want specialists who are amazing at what they do and confident about the where those borders are. And, Martin, like if you need a complex CRM campaign or a huge DCO lower funnel thing, that's not what we do. I mean, we are capable of doing some of that work, but that's not what we're best in the country or best in the world at.
Right.
What we are amazing at is if you need video that is amazing in its own right across channels and going to generate earned, we do that. We've gotten really good at brand activations. We're getting really good at social and community management and reaching kind of niche audiences. But we operate in the upper mid to upper funnel.
Yeah.
And I kind of hate the funnel, but it's a useful paradigm for talking about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's next for you and your career and for the Martin Agency?
Well, gosh, I mean, people say this, but I'm truly just psyched to be doing what I'm doing
Still,
now.
after all this time, you still enjoy it?
I do. I mean, I wouldn't never say never to at some point thinking about client side, but right now I feel I have this great mix of looking after a group of incredibly talented people and seeing them grow is my success. And then I also spend a lot of time on new business and looking after the commercial end of making sure that we design deals with clients that are fair for both parties and sustainable and going to allow us to actually do killer work. And that's not easy. Agencies are bad at being persuasive enough to get paid what we're worth. And so as long as I can help on those two fronts, I feel, pretty honored to do what I'm doing. But at some point, I may look at the idea of trying to go be a CMO or do something like that. Because the only side of that I think is interesting is to have, we are very much in the world of content and communications, but to be able to look across other parts of the business is interesting.
You're telling me you want to go into a position that has an average tenure of 2 to 3 years? Hey. Enjoy that. Enjoy that. No, it's pretty sweet here. And I just wanted to thank you and having us here, understanding your role and what it's like to work at the Martin Agency today has been phenomenal. My question for you is, if anybody wants to talk to you, send you an email or anything like that, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah. Send me a message on LinkedIn. I mean, I do reply to those. Perfect. And, we love to hear from people and, we want to be the best home for, great talent, great creative talent and account and strategy talent in the country. So please reach out.
Boom.